Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am the generational talent in Garden State Media, and certainly I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption because my level of honesty, ladies and gentlemen, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. That's right, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Hope you're having a wonderful month of March, folks. Again, hopefully many of you get to enjoy St. Patrick's Day weekend, and hopefully you all party responsibly, as I know you will. As always, there's a lot to discuss. So let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. And folks, sort of following down the Julie Wojcinski playbook, you can rest assured that one of her disciples, Katie Brennan, is up to her usual nonsense. And a special thank you to John Hines for his reporting on this story. Now, Katie Brennan, who is running as an independent in the upcoming Democrat primary for the state assembly, has a lot to say about the current administration in Washington. Now, she's been going off on actions taken by the Trump administration as recently as last weekend, emphasizing that, quote, if he wants to be a dictator, everyone gets hurt, including those in Hoboken and Jersey City. Why Katie is this level of hysteric, I don't know, but it's Katie Brennan, so bear with me, folks. She goes on to say, quote, Donald Trump spent the entire weekend breaking the law and ignoring the Constitution. We should all be alarmed by how our system of checks and balances is failing, because each illegal act that goes unchallenged moves us further and further from democracy and closer to a dictatorship. It's becoming difficult to even keep up with the sheer volume of laws being broken right now, but we can't look away or allow it to become the new normal. Now, she referenced Donald Trump signing an executive order eliminating the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness on Friday, invoking the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to bypass certain immigration laws on Saturday, and then halting the deportation of more than 130 people under the 18th century act before finally calling President Joe Biden's pardons void. Quote, when Trump breaks the law, it's not only a threat to our values, but to the safety and stability of people here in Jersey City, Hoboken, and across the state. We're all less safe when the Trump administration can make people disappear on a whim without due process or any regard for the law. Brennan, who is running along with Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala, a fellow virtue signaler and woke fool, coming up in the Democrat primary. When Trump eliminates independent government agencies, his administration isn't just burning books, but burning down the very institutions that family rely on every day. More on that later, though, because it's hyper-hysteria by Katie Brennan. If Trump wants to be a dictator and burn it all down, New Jersey needs to build a firewall against these attacks on our communities. Our state must challenge these attacks in court, build up a budget reserve to backfill federal cuts, and even consider withholding our tax dollars if the federal government refuses to follow the law. Now, Brennan is in a 6-person, 3-slate race in the upcoming June 10th Democrat primary, where Assemblywoman Jessica Ramirez is running alongside Jersey City Ward D Councilman Yusuf Saleh on Jersey City Mayor Stephen Phillips' slate as part of his gubernatorial ticket. Additionally, Hoboken Public Library Executive Director Jenny Pugh and Jersey City Director of Buildings and Street Maintenance Krista Fonseca are running with the backing of the Hudson County Democrat organization. Well, folks, let's just break this down here. Another hysterical woman having a meltdown about Donald Trump. What else is new? Now, I wouldn't call, Katie one of these insufferable childless cat ladies, but she's one of these insufferable activists that seems to just think that, hey, what's going on in Washington is something that's going to be affecting Jersey City and Hoboken and the 32nd Legislative District. Now, I understand that, listen, all politics is local. But, folks, let me give Katie a reality check here. Very much like her running mate, Ravi Bala, they're both pretty delusional. Because at the end of the day, folks, and I've talked about this on numerous occasions on my other program, which, by the way, you can check out every Monday night via Real Talk with Fernando Uribe on the Jersey First Television Network. And I've talked about this, that in an election year, yes, there are many candidates running for governor, but also it's an important legislative election season as all 80 state assembly seats are up for grabs. But folks, you know what's interesting about Katie Brennan? Katie Brennan would rather focus on national politics when in the 32nd Legislative District, which is comprised of the city of Hoboken, the Jersey City Heights, and downtown Jersey City, arguably are 3 of the most expensive areas to live in all of Hudson County. Now, when it comes to, for example, real issues, not woke bullshit like pronouns and identitarian politics or dealing, with coddling mentally ill people, trans people. Folks, it's about property taxes. It's about affordability. And that's something that Democrats in Trenton seem to be clueless about. Because here's a reality check for Katie Brennan. It's not conservatives like me, but for over 20 years, Democrats have had a solid majority in both chambers of the state legislature, which, by the way, one of their responsibilities is allocating the state budget, which is constitutionally mandated under New Jersey law. So every June 30th by 11:59 p.m., a state budget has to be signed by the governor. If it is not, the state will shut down at 12:01 a.m. on July the 1st. Now, we've lived through some state shutdowns, most recently with Governor Corzine in 2006, and of course, Governor Chris Christie in 2017. Now, Governor Murphy has avoided a shutdown, but almost right around getting down to the final buzzer in recent years. But folks, when you wonder about why New Jersey, again, has the highest property taxes in the country, which went up again at an average of over $10,000, when the gas tax and its final phase went into gear this past December, when tolls on both the New Jersey Turnpike and Garden State Parkway increased once again, yes, folks, it was a bipartisan effort with recent governors, Chris Christie and Phil Murphy. But with majorities such as 52-28 in the state assembly, and I believe 23-17 in the state Senate, Democrats have pretty much run the state into the ground when it comes to how unaffordable it is, once again with the highest property tax in the country, and we continue to spend. Now, at the end of his second term, Governor Chris Christie left office after signing a $29 billion budget. That's right, folks, billion with a B. Now, as Governor Phil Murphy will thankfully be finishing his second term, the state budget is rumored to be around $58 million, folks. It is doubled in just 8 years. Now, of course, Governor Murphy and Assembly and State Senate Democrats are a lot to blame because they're in the majority. Now, Democrats can go and talk about Republicans all they want, but Republicans haven't had any say in state government for well over 20 years. Yes, Republican governors have come and gone, but they've had to work in a bipartisan manner with legislative Democrats. It seems like Katie Brennan has forgotten about that. So when she wants to bitch and moan about what the President of the United States is doing to deport gang members from Venezuela, which again, as far as I'm concerned, are we really crying about these despicable gang members? No, we're not. Are we really crying about jihadists like Mahmoud Khalil from, a recent student at Columbia University who happened to knock up an American woman? What else is new? Okay. But of course has a green card and a work visa. Well, folks, here's a news flash for people like Katie Brennan and Ravi Bala, who love to coddle illegals and tend to always be on the side of criminals instead of law-abiding citizens. Mahmoud Khalil doesn't have a right to be here. It's a privilege to have a green card. It's a privilege to have a visa. And if you choose to not obey the laws of the United States by participating in the destruction of property on a college campus, whether public or private, you're not following the law. And when you're on campus at Columbia University, which I like to affectionately call Jihadist University, when you're passing out pamphlets and flyers with logos containing literature and propaganda from terrorist organizations like Hamas, I'm sorry. When you're participating in activities like this, if the State Department wants to revoke your visa and your green card, they can do that. There's a law in place for that. It's not because anyone's against free speech, folks. It's, again, a privilege to come here. It's a privilege to have a visa and a green card. And if you choose to not follow the laws of the land, you'll be deported. And that's hopefully what would happen to jihadist Mahmoud Khalil. Or other criminals, like Venezuelan gang members that have been terrorizing Americans, in many instances assaulting them and even committing homicides. But again, these are the people that the Trump administration under border czar, like a real border czar, unlike Kamala Harris, who was, cackling for 4 years and never visited the border, maybe once if we were lucky. Tom Homan's getting to work. And folks, this is what I voted for. This is what over 77 million people voted for. It's not just like Donald Trump won the Electoral College and, yeah, he didn't win the popular vote like in 2016. No, folks, he won the popular vote decisively. There was a mandate here. Americans were tired of seeing illegals getting free housing, free medical care, and free amenities. Americans were tired of seeing illegals committing criminality all across this country. So we're deporting some dangerous criminal illegals, in some cases, even terrorists like Mahmoud Khalil. But you would think that Katie Brennan would talk about that. No, she would rather focus on national issues when we all know that in the 32nd Legislative District, the biggest issues are affordability, are trying to maybe reduce property taxes, if anything, if that's at all possible in Trenton. But again, folks, this is why Katie Brennan is effing useless. Because she would rather virtue signal and bitch and moan. And I get it. Listen, she's nice to look at. She's hot. And I get it. Hot chicks are going to get attention and you'll probably listen to them as opposed to some of the really insufferable looking feminists and cat ladies out there that are not very visually appealing. I get all that stuff. So she has that in her favor. The problem is she's really nice to look at. When she opens her mouth, that's when the shit hits the fan. And that's the problem with people like Katie Brennan. Because, hey, like a lot of liberals and a lot of progressives and a lot of people on the left, yeah, your heart's in the right place, but your head's so far up your asses, you can't see straight. And in a time, once again, when people are struggling to pay property taxes because their properties are going up in value again because of where we're living at, because the state spends like drunken sailors, again, no disrespect to our brave men and women serving in the United States Navy, but spending like drunken sailors, when we're allocating tax dollars in the budget to revert them to a legal fund to help illegals fight deportations. That is what has been happening in the Murphy administration, folks. You would think Katie Brennan would be outraged about that, where our tax dollars are going to. No, this incessant feminist, insufferable feminist actually, would rather bitch and moan about what's going on in Washington with Donald Trump. How about this, Katie, since you want to talk about, I don't know, maybe having some sort of, fund, in case federal tax dollars aren't coming New Jersey's way. How about trying to, petition our legislators to not spend as much on some ridiculous projects that we all know are part of state spending? Why don't you do that much? Why don't you go to Trenton, okay? Instead of bitching and moaning about line ballot designs, why don't you go right to your local legislators? Why don't you hold one of the fellow legislators like Jessica Ramirez? And again, she's a smoke show too, and she's great to look at. Only difference is that when Jessica opens her mouth, at least some constructive things come out of it, which is more than I can say about Katie Brennan. And don't even get me started on Ravi Bala. But folks, this is the problem with people like Katie Brennan. What she decides to do with her time isn't very productive. And for a woman that isn't granting a lot of interviews to local media, for a woman that probably isn't raising a lot of money, and thankfully, listen, she has Ravi Bala's donations to fall back on because she wasn't raising an effing nickel. And for someone that needs to get out there and put out content, you would think that she'd be doing more interviews with local press. That doesn't seem to be high on her priority list. But when it comes to like bitching to live and living to bitch, no, she excels at that. Folks, Katie Brennan is not a serious candidate because right now we have serious problems in Trenton and we need serious people to solve them. And Katie Brennan just isn't one of them. And once again, in a time when property taxes are on the rise, gas tax is still, folks, by the way, have you filled up your gas tank lately? Yeah, gas is going down. But because of the final phase of the gas tax kicking in, guess what? We're paying almost 60 cents more per gallon because of the gas tax. And again, the gas tax is to help pay for the Transportation Trust Fund. Folks, have you been on the roads in New Jersey lately? If the gas tax and its revenue is supposed to fill up the Transportation Trust Fund, what exactly am I supposed to trust about this fund about transportation? Doesn't seem very trustworthy to me. That's where your focus on should be on, Katie. Not identitarian politics, not coddling trans people, not coddling illegals. No one gives a shit about that, much less me. But someone needs to call you out on your bullshit, and I'm happy to do that. Smarten up. You got 3 months to go, and if you want to make any dent whatsoever in this primary race, start acting like an adult because we need adults to solve these problems. And guess what, Katie? You're not being one. That's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, some local stories for your consideration, and a special thank you to James Los Santos, the editor-in-chief at HuffPost, for his reporting on this exclusive, to where the Recording Academy has confirmed that Leonard Filipowski is not a Grammy winner. Now, folks, if you've watched my latest episode of Real Talk on Jersey First TV, you know I talked about this during Final Thoughts, but it bears repeating once again. Now, for over a year, Leonard Filipowski, folks, I'm not going to refer to him by his gimmick name because, come on, we're adults here. Okay, I refer to people by their birth name, not some bullshit gimmick name that he wants to sort of, try to get street cred on. Has positioned himself as an independent investigator, which he's not, targeting political figures, which he has incessantly in a really obnoxious way, as well as media outlets and government institutions across Hudson County. His videos and confrontational tactics, which, by the way, is really disingenuous because this is the same guy that if you sneeze on him, he's the first one screaming, "Oh, let me go, let me go, what are you doing? Oh, stop that." Like, that's Leonard Filipowski, the least masculine man I've ever seen, trying to be masculine. Talk about that irony, right? Have gained traction in local activist circles. I don't know with who, what, like local slapnut podcasters like Long Island Truth or Garden State Audit, whatever the F those ridiculous podcasts are called. I don't know. And I don't care because they're not really serious journalism either. And with online audiences who see him as an outsider exposing corruption. No, folks, he's a professional agitator. He's not a journalist in the least. But more on that later. But now a key part of Filipowski's public persona has been exposed as a lie. The Recording Academy Communications Department has officially confirmed to HuffPost that Leonard Filipowski, publicly known as Leroy Truth, is not a Grammy Award winner, despite his repeated claims. In an exclusive statement, the Academy made it clear that contributing musicians and composers on Grammy-winning albums do not automatically qualify as Grammy winners, particularly in the polka category. Jesus Christ, really? Polka? Oh my God. In which Filipowski was involved. The Academy stated, quote, "Mr. Filipowski is not a Grammy Award winner." When asked if his work as a pianist and composer on a Grammy-winning album made him eligible for an award, the Academy was indeed definitive. Quote, "No, it was not an eligibly credited role for a Grammy win in this category." Filipowski has been making this claim, though it is unclear when he first started. He has referred to himself as a Grammy-winning pianist in social media posts and also on YouTube videos. And the claim was disputed by HuffPost in January when we reported on an incident at a monumental Baptist church on the south side of Jersey City, where Filipowski was forcibly removed from the church. Yeah, folks, you remember that entire incident, right? It was pretty embarrassing. He claims he was sitting there praying. Praying to who? I don't know. But of course, when he started being a nuisance and insufferable, which is what he is 24/7, he was asked to leave and he was removed by Jersey City police. Now, folks, if we've all watched the footage, it's pretty embarrassing. This is a grown man in his late 60s throwing himself to the ground. I mean, I haven't seen a grown man flop that much since LeBron James, the star forward for the Los Angeles Lakers. And by the way, I'm a Laker fan, so I can say that out loud. But that's how embarrassing Leonard Filipowski looks to people. Throwing himself to the floor, pretending that police officers are mistreating him and mishandling him, and he wants to file abuse charges. Folks, it's just bullshit. It just really is, right? Now, of course, HuffPost was happy to debunk the claim. And shortly after the reporting, Filipowski responded in an appearance on the Long Island Audit YouTube channel, a First Amendment, quote, audit platform with over 900,000 subscribers. Well, folks, I mean, people watch CNN also. It doesn't mean it's any good either. When asked directly about HuffPost's reporting, Filipowski shifted the narrative, admitting he never received a Grammy trophy, but insists he was still a winner. What? Can someone explain it to me? So you never received a Grammy trophy, but you're still a Grammy Award winner? Really? Can someone explain this stupidity to me? Leave it to Leonard to be this delusional, but more on that later. Quote, "I was on multiple Grammy Awards with Jimmy Sturr and his orchestra. If any musician plays on a Grammy-winning album, we are indeed Grammy Award winners." Oh, okay, well. However, Filipowski urged viewers to verify his claim by looking up the song "I Love to Polka" on Wikipedia. Yes, Leonard, because we all know that everything on Wikipedia is scripture and is without rebuke, right? Give me a break. A song he says he composed, but an examination of the album's official credits tells a different story. Now, the 1995 album, I can't even say this seriously without laughing, folks. "I Love to Polka" by Jimmy Sturr and his orchestra won the Grammy Award for Best Polka Album in 1996. My God, there's really a category for this bullshit. The track, quote, "I Love to Polka," which Filipowski claims as his own, is listed as part of the album, yet he does not appear anywhere in the album's official personal credits. This further disproves Filipowski's claims that, quote, "if any musician plays on a Grammy-winning album, we are Grammy Award winners," since he's not even credited as a musician on the album himself. The Recording Academy statement to HuffPost directly refutes this, making it clear that Filipowski does not meet the eligibility criteria on official recognition as a Grammy winner. Folks, let me just give you a little bit more context here. Leonard Filipowski is a clown. That's what we've learned since he decided to park himself here in Hudson County in December of 2023 and be just an absolute nuisance to Union City Mayor and State Senator Brian Stack, former governor and Jersey mayoral candidate Jim McGreevey, as well as other elected officials down in Edison and all the way out in Morris County. But folks, what's very interesting about Leonard is that a grown man in his late 60s, it's downright scary that he lacks this much awareness. No, Leonard, you just can't show up anywhere you want, thinking you own the place. You sit down and you play piano, which nobody can verify that anyone asked you to do that because you just feel like doing that. See, folks, that's the entitlement mentality that's running rampant in today's society. And Leonard Filipowski exhibits that, and he exemplifies that. Who told you it's your right to just walk in anywhere and do whatever it is you want? There's something called decorum. I know it's a big word for you to process, right? And here's another big word for you to process. It's a 4-syllable word, so bear with me, Leonard. It's integrity. You don't have any. We've known that since you first showed up on the scene here in Hudson County. But here's where it gets interesting, because Leonard has the audacity to go on all these little local woke podcasts or whatever other nonsense, whether it's, Long Island Truth or what was this one called here? I'm sorry. It was, just bear with me here. I'm sorry, Long Island Audit, right? There's Full Court Press and Long Island Audit. Again, these two slapnut podcasts by these two slapnut hosts just enable him. But what's worse, though, is that he gets enabled by a lot of the local minions that seem to revere him for some mysterious reason. Whether it's retired malcontents like former police officers Joe Blaitler and Ernie Rivera Batiz, local illiterates like Jose Garrido, John Bender, and others that somehow are the only people on social media propping this fool up. They're the only people commenting on it's the same people commenting, liking these ridiculous statuses by Leonard Filipowski on social media and, of course, on his YouTube videos. But thanks to HUDPost, one less thing to take seriously about Leonard Filipowski. And that's the thing, folks. When it comes to this, you would think a grown man, again in his late 60s, would have more decorum. No, Leonard, you can't walk around thinking you own the place. You can just walk in whenever you want. You can act like an insufferable asshole and think that people have to tolerate it. No, we don't have to. And if you don't act accordingly with some decorum, then you'll be asked to leave. Whether it's at a commissioner's meeting, whether it's a council meeting, whether it's a county commissioner's meeting, or whether it's in a public, well, actually in a private gathering. Because the church isn't a public place. It's private property. And if the pastor at a church wants you removed, he has every right to. That's why there are police officers there. And that's why you were removed. And that's why you flopped on the floor like a marionette that happened to land in a boat. And you embarrassed yourself. You embarrassed yourself when you went to Trenton. And you acted like an asshole there too. And decided to harass State Senator Brian Stack during a committee meeting. And folks, when you decide to misbehave in Trenton, the state troopers ain't going to ask you to leave politely. They're going to remove you. And of course, what do you decide to do? You decide to be a hyper hysteric. Maybe you and Katie Brennan should host a podcast together and call it Hysterical Mania. I mean, you two would be perfect for each other. But that's the problem, folks, with Leonard Filipowski. This is a guy that continues to be, again, revered by all the wrong people. Whether it's ridiculous podcasters, retired malcontents, illiterates in Hudson County, or everyone else in between, who somehow think what he's doing is noble. But quite frankly, what he's doing is outright nonsense. In some more festive news, folks, coming up in 2026, as we all know, the FIFA World Cup will come to the United States, Mexico, and Canada. And here in New Jersey, nearby at MetLife Stadium, we'll have group play during the opening rounds. And of course, the final will be played at MetLife Stadium in July of 2026. But again, thank you to James Los Santos and HUDPost for their reporting on this story, where Liberty State Park will host a 40-day FIFA World Cup Fan Fest during that summer. Now, Liberty State Park in Jersey will become the epicenter of World Cup celebrations in the region, as it will be hosting a 40-day FIFA Fan Fest, one of the only dedicated spaces for public viewing of the tournament. With MetLife Stadium set to host World Cup matches, but limited to only 80,000 spectators, the Fan Fest offers a larger and more inclusive way for locals and visitors to experience the event. Now, during the recent meeting with the FIFA World Cup New York, New Jersey, and New York City division, the Hudson County Chamber of Commerce discussed how local businesses could be represented at the event. Now, while space will be limited, organizers are working to ensure fair opportunities for small businesses from Hudson County to indeed participate. FIFA NJ and NYC CEO Alex Losry emphasized the significance of the Fan Fest. Quote, "We need to give an experience worthy," acknowledging that this World Cup coincides with the 250th anniversary of the United States, making it an even more historic occasion. Now, transportation will be a key focus in preparing for the event, with Liberty State Park accessible via the Hudson-Bergen Light Rail for those traveling from northern Hudson County. Also, ensuring smooth access to the site will be crucial in making this a successful and welcoming fan experience. With Corona Park in Queens ruled out and Central Park in Manhattan still unconfirmed, Liberty State Park stands as the only officially announced FanFest location in the region. The event is expected to be a massive celebration, bringing together the most diverse population in the world to share in the excitement of the sport's biggest stage for, indeed, the global game. Well, folks, listen, being Colombian and Spaniard myself, and of course being an American citizen, I'm excited for the World Cup, and we're going to see amazing football, real football, the world sport, here in 2026. I can't wait to go to Liberty State Park, see some of these festivities out in the open. Yeah, it'll be June, it'll be hot, it'll be a little sunny, but folks, wear some sunscreen and rock those national jerseys and represent your country during the FIFA World Cup. And I'll tell you, that's going to be quite an experience coming up in July of 2026 in Jersey City. Lastly, we're less than a month away, ladies and gentlemen, from the 2025 edition of Memories Matter to benefit Alzheimer's New Jersey. So mark on your calendars for Thursday night, April the 17th. And we'll be hosting it at the world-famous Waterside, which is located along the waterfront in North Bergen, New Jersey. Again, where all proceeds will benefit Alzheimer's New Jersey. Now, we'll be kicking it off at 7 o'clock, and because it is Easter weekend, folks, the next day is Good Friday, a lot of you will have off. So guess what? If you need a reason to stay out Thursday night, well, now you have it. Now, I'll be joined by my amazing co-hosts, Alexandra Hammer, Carmen Kenny, Jacqueline Rodriguez, Lucy Costa, and Vladimir Carrero. Together, we'll be greeting you upon arrival. We are asking you to please bring $20 of a donation, which will be submitted to Alzheimer's New Jersey. We'll also have plenty of raffles from local restaurants and spas that will be available. Again, folks, raffle tickets are only $2, so make sure you bring some cash. I know we sort of live in this world now where everything's, cash apps or Zells or Venmos or whatever, or PayPal. No, folks, make sure you bring cash that evening. Again, there will be great drinks and appetizers available that day. It is a cash bar and also cash food that evening. So again, let's be ready to party for a great cause. Folks, if you haven't done so already, please visit www.alznj.org, which is the official website for Alzheimer's New Jersey. Now, I've been proud to partner with them for the last few years. And I got to tell you, folks, when I think about Kenneth Sands and Elaine Winter, they are outstanding individuals working with Alzheimer's New Jersey. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, mark it on your calendars for Thursday night, April the 17th at the world-famous Waterside in North Bergen, right along the waterfront, as we'll be partying from 7 p.m. until midnight, maybe even later during the evening to benefit Alzheimer's New Jersey. Once again, tell your friends, folks, you can check out the flyer right there next to me, scan the QR code if necessary, and you can donate online if you can't make it on Thursday night, April the 17th, where together we'll defeat Alzheimer's once and for all. And that's our show for this week. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, to check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media right here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group. Please like them on Facebook, of course, and follow them on YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Hudson Media Group YouTube page, and you'll be automatically notified of all the great content brought to you by the Hudson Media Group, which includes Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe, Hudson County View Live on Wednesdays with John R. Highness, Stick at Night with Hudson County Commissioner Anthony Romano, and of course, all the great, hardworking young men and women from North Bergen High School. Folks, it's phenomenal programming. And again, I can't thank enough the executive producer and CEO of the Hudson Media Group, Patrick O'Malia, for his belief in my brand of media, which coincidentally, I'll be celebrating 6 years here with the Hudson Media Group coming up in April. Folks, always remember, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I'm Fernando Uribe. Please party responsibly, and as always, stay classy, everyone.